Welcome everybody to the joint July-August meeting of the North Aqua Planning Commission. First order of business is review of the minutes from June. They're written out in the pack of the time. Any comments, applications, any edits? Hearing none, a motion to approve as submitted. Yes. I'll second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 502.
David, stop.
Correct. And first plan review 440-450 Hoffman Road.
Good evening. Hopefully you remember this project. We were here a couple of months ago and discussed the review letters, and we revised the plan and got new review letters. And I think a quick summary is both review letters from Michelle, CKS, and from Bowman Engineers. I would consider them to be will comply letters. There's nothing really in there that's significant. There is one comment from CKS's letter that I wanted to discuss and hopefully clarify. We had agreed at last meeting that we would extend a sidewalk or path from the end of the existing concrete sidewalk, which is the left side of the plan. You can see it shaded along our entire frontage. That was what we agreed to do. We had discussed the use of an asphalt path rather than sidewalk, which is what we proposed. And it is kind of a challenging area. There's some slopes involved, there's utility poles, so we're kind of weaving around all of those features. I do think for some of those reasons, asphalt works better than concrete. And as Michelle mentions, we'll have to also provide an easement because some of it goes beyond the right of way. So I think that's as we discussed the asphalt path. And then the second aspect of that is its width. We're proposing 6 feet wide, which again, I think is what we discussed at the Planning Commission. It's 1 foot wider than it would be if it was an ordinary concrete sidewalk. It's not the width of a bike path, which is 8 feet. So in Stephanie's letter, she's recommending calling it an asphalt sidewalk. I think that would require a waiver for material to use asphalt. We call it a path, it might require a waiver for width. So if we're in agreement that asphalt is acceptable and 6 feet wide is acceptable, it's just a matter of determining which waiver we're going to add to our list. That's really the only issue I see both letters, unless Michelle or Stephanie has any comments.
Stephanie's not here today.
Oh, okay, good. She didn't have any comments.
No, that was the only thing I wanted to discuss.
Okay. Any questions?
I mean, is there any implication calling it a path versus a sidewalk?
Just what the ordinance requires, the sidewalk is usually concrete. So like Rick explained to you.
I understand that. I'm just saying, like,
So
if we say we're doing a path in the front yard, is there anything that we start?
No,
reading Stephanie's language, I think she is recommending calling it a sidewalk, getting a width for the material. That seems to be her recommendation. I'm not sure what the reasoning is, but I'm perfectly fine. It's okay with that.
of course, I prefer to do it my way, but because a path is usually bituminous, so I'd rather it be called bituminous and then get the waiver for the width.
And we're fine with that. And I guess the only thing that I would say is if Stephanie has some other reason that maybe we should consider, I'll talk to her just to make sure, but I would be fine with that.
Okay.
Does the maintenance of a path versus sidewalk differ?
You will get a longer lifespan at a concrete.
For maintenance from who maintains it?
Oh, no, the property owner will maintain the
Okay.
path or the concrete section.
Are you talking about 3 feet wide, 4 feet wide?
Each end will try, as long as it's in front of their, if it's along their frontage, they will maintain.
If you're asking what are we proposing, it's 6 feet.
6 feet outside. So just out of curiosity, why In the last six and stuff.
Well, concrete to me is better suited when it's a, you know. a Consistent distance from the curb, and it's a consistent grade and. Follows the road line. That to me is a concrete sidewalk situation, a little bit more urban. This is like the break between. Sort of density where the golf course is and very low density. I think a path fits the whole character better. I can't say there's a huge cost difference, there probably isn't either way, but the path, particularly going around utility poles and things like that, I think it just is a better solution in my mind.
And I drove past there, and I would say that, I mean, the slope away from the street does vary. It's not gonna be a straight on sidewalk, but. I agree.
Did want to remind the planning commission of one other thing. We agreed to take the street trees and put them, not where the street trees would normally be, but in an area that has no trees today. So that's what the plan shows.
So anybody has shown for that. All right, so does that just modify the list of waivers then?
Yes, yes, and we'll work out which way you're needs to be requested.
Okay. Yeah. So everything else is will comply.
It is.
So motion to approve, subject to the final resolution of the determination for waiver requirements for the path.
Slash sidewalk.
And or sidewalk.
And what's that, whatever you guys decide. A second. Second, thank you, Zach. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
First Administrative Office zoning text amendment.
Good evening. Kristen Pianzio here from Hamburg with Mullen, Maxwell and Lupin. To talk once again about 355 Maple Avenue. I have Zach Moore from Velocity, Greg Aldifer as well. I have the executive director from Care and Share, Sarah Bergen, sitting in the front row, and Eric Connor, who's our chair of the board of directors of Care and Share as well. We are here, they are the catalyst for our discussion here this evening. We do have some graphics to share with you, and I'll get to that in a minute. As you know, I call it the Nationwide building. I think we all know it as that. It's been vacant since 2019. Velocity has invested $27 million into this property. In the last 36 months, they have redeveloped the property and have put a significant amount of time and effort into the redevelopment. Unfortunately, what we saw as a life science market has tanked from what we originally came in. We modified the ordinance before for light manufacturing and life science uses, and that market has basically gone in a swallowed up direction. So we've come here, finally found a tenant that is interested in taking a large portion of the building, and it's Care and Share. They are ready to go. The lease is signed, and we are hoping that this is the catalyst for some activity and interest in the building and the property in general. So I've approached the township in asking for another modification of the AO district so that we can get them in. They are a retail user. This is the AO district, the only one left. I think the only other AO district is a park. The Olive Park. So it really, it doesn't belong. We're trying to find a way to think about the building and the rest of the property. It's next to the VC district. So after a lot of back and forth, my original idea was a very narrow text amendment after discussing it with staff and your building and zoning committee. I think that's what you call it, right? We came up with a modification of the AO district, which brought in all the non-residential uses of the VC district, which is adjacent. And that is the text amendment, which is before you for your consideration. So it includes the conditional use permitted uses and the regular permitted by right uses. We have uses that are permitted in the existing building outright, but I think the staff and your building and zoning committee felt more comfortable that should there be any thought for any new development outside of the existing building, that it should go through a master plan first, because there is a lot of vacant ground. And I think there was a level of comfort in having a master plan so that it didn't come in piecemeal. And we understand that because we don't have a plan for the rest of the building right now. So we understand that planning would make sense for the rest of the building. And a master plan requires your sketch requirements, which is basically the layout of roads, contours. So it would be the internal streets, the layout of buildings, where the uses would be, so things wouldn't be jumbled and moved around. Once that master plan, which would come here in front of the planning commission and get approved, once that would be set in place, any modifications to the master plan would have to come back to you. Like if uses were to move around or streets would be moved around, it would have to come back so that there would be at least something set in place. So that is sort of a safety net so that this modification to the ordinance wouldn't be left for a piecemeal development as we move forward. But as far as the existing building, the uses that are permitted, that section of the ordinance is the beginning section, permits certain uses in the existing structure. Obviously, a master plan would not be required for that. And this enables Karen Share to get in. They are very anxious to get started. So that is my broad brush introduction. We do have a layout of how the building would be laid out with the interior design for Karen Share. We can share that with you, and what's left over on the inside of the building for other potential uses. So we can share that with you. Okay.
But if I could just add to Kristen's intro, just a little bit more of the history. So with the AO district, like Kristen mentioned, it's this property and the Overford Park property. When we look at ordinance amendments, we don't look at them as a reaction to a potential developer. We look at them as whether or not they're appropriate for the township as a whole. Right? So when requests like this come in, we back up and we take a look at the bigger picture, whether or not this is an appropriate amendment to move forward, or if we need to take a closer look at it. So when the request initially came in, backing up to their original request when we were considering the R&D and the engineering technology, it seemed appropriate at the time, especially because of COVID. It's an administrative office district, so of course it's been remain vacant for a long time if you're looking for a big office facility again. So moving forward with those text amendments made sense. But again, with the narrow, I'll call it like more of like a narrow perspective of the specific types of uses that could go in, it still wasn't a lot of options, you know, for a district like this. So this takes a broader look that we felt was more appropriate for this district township wide, not just for their current situation, but as we know, situations on, you know, developers or property ownership changes through the years. And so this pulls in adjacent zoning uses instead of doing a map amendment. Going in this direction is more in line with what you might see in districts nowadays. So this is more appropriate in general. And also it would preclude in the future having another request of something else being added. Take a look at it broad brush right now for everything that we think would be appropriate for this property. And or from vertical, but of course important.
Another comment, because you and Christian used the word adopting the adjacent zoning. I'm going to tell you probably 90% of that property's border is adjacent to residential. R2, R3, R1. So that's not necessarily my view, adjacent to other village commercial properties. Has a very small piece that's connected to the village commercial. But 90+% of it is residential that surrounds that property.
That's fair.
It's the amount of square footage that Karen shared with me. What amount of that is actually retail?
125,000.
And what's the retail?
Why don't we bring the plan up? Let me bring the plan up, the
Yeah,
space plan.
it's
Kristen,
good.
you want me to do the plan?
He's gonna bring it up and then you can talk about
All right. Mind just zooming out. So what you're looking at right now is I'm sorry. All right. Yeah, you're good. Time. So what you're looking at right now is an aerial floor plan of the entire first floor plan of that property. And if you look at the dark blue and the light blue that's below it, that is the care and share section of the building. So if you're facing the site from the front parking lot, 113's on your right, Maple Avenue's on your left. They're taking the farmost right portion of the property. It's about 125,000 square feet. What remains at the property after this lease is the former cafeteria, which is right where Mike's cursor is, as well as the 4-story office building, which is the traditional office building that everybody's familiar with. Collectively about 80,000 square feet of availability. So Care and Share is taking the majority of the property. When you look at the space and how it breaks down, the light blue section of the space is processing and receiving of donations, as well as storage. The dark blue section of the space is a mix of volunteer training, administrative office, as well as retail sales. The retail as a whole is probably about 30 to 40,000 square feet of the broader 120,000 square foot umbrella. Vast majority of the space is for managing volunteers, and I'm sure Sarah would be happy to share more about why the building's attractive for them and the need to attract and retain their volunteers and why this works really well and how that is a big push as part of this overall program for them. But that's in general how the site breaks down with them occupying.
it. Go ahead, Sarah. Do you want to add something?
Well, I'd like to say thank you for your time today and for having us here. And thank you for supporting Care and Share. We've been here for 50 years and I'm very appreciative for all your donations. And I'm sure you have more in your garage right now and you're just waiting to bring them over. I know that's usually what people tell me and they want to put it in my car, but thank you very much. We couldn't do that without the donations everyone gives, as well as the volunteer time. We are a leader in our area for managing volunteers. Through COVID, we have about 1,200 volunteers. Now we're right around 600, and that is part of the reason why we need to move. We are currently set up in a situation where we're replicating services individually in each store. We do not have as many volunteers to run all those shops, so we're having to pay for staff, which is cutting into our overall goal of donating to Mennonite Central Committee. We're a leader in our world of thrift in the MCC world, Mennonite Central Committee for thrift, with upwards of giving of 25 million since we've been founded. The part that I love to talk about Care and Share is the volunteer experience. We have not only individual volunteers, but right now we have over 30 groups from our community that come and volunteer with their job coaches, for instance. There's no place else for them to serve. They can't serve at the hospital. There's too many regulations now for that to happen. They need places to get out in the community and just learn social skills to be around people. And we are happy to have them come and spend time with us. Part of that plan you just saw is a very large break room for socialization to occur with our volunteers. A lot of them are just getting out of the house. Single volunteers needing something to do, their spouse passed away, et cetera, et cetera. This gives them that area to make that happen and, promote really positive feelings among each other. The shopping at Care and Share, because of all your generosity, it's tight right now. We really need more space to just spread things out so people can see it and have a better shopping experience. So again, thank you for your time here this morning. If there's questions about Care and Share, I'd love to talk about it. I can talk about it for hours and hours and hours. That's part of my job, so.
Thank you.
Questions?
I love the use there. I'm concerned with some of the change. It's generally not a retail center. That's a great use as a retail. But it's not, there's like zero retail integrity to that property. It's
That's why it's that part of the word is.
yeah, they weren't retail, but, but it's
So can you just share with us when you say zero retail, like, what do you?
Yeah, I mean, retail wants traffic count, it doesn't exist there, visibility doesn't exist there, general population doesn't exist here. For retail, and it's just something that, I don't think retailers, I don't think there'll be any success in any retail there. So. On one hand, you could say, well, changes are a little point, because it's probably not gonna happen. But it just doesn't seem like retail is like the right use for it. There's a way, I mean, ideally, I think this use works. And if we could make that work without making these dramatic changes, that'd be the best thing. I don't know how that can happen, but I think the last thing we want then is a strip center or a local strip center, a local retail, it's just not a spot for it. Despite the fact I don't think it'll attract retail.
If I might, can I comment on that? So I totally appreciate the feedback and the perspective. So before I get into this and respond to that, we're very appreciative of the flexibility and the relationship we've had with Lower Southbridge since we became involved with this site. I've owned it for 3 years. We made a $27 million investment. My involvement with the property started 24 months before that. So I've been involved with this site for 5 years. And in having it under contract for almost 2 years and then owning it for 3, I, without exaggeration, have probably received 30 inquiries related to redevelopment of that site from outside groups. Putting residential aside, which I know is a non-starter, 85–90% have been retail focused groups. And I recognize that in today's world with a vacant site like that, you're exactly right. There's not a lot of retail interest from groups that want to come in there. You say, okay, we're going to be the only user on this property, and we're going to hope that people come to this island and shop. Care and Share is going to create an ecosystem over there. And when I first came to the township in the spring about what we were doing here with Care and Share, my idea was, hey, let's make it very specific to Care and Share. The township came back and said, hey, we don't really love the idea that we want to make it broader. We view this district as an extension of our village commercial district, which I believe. I've been involved with the Vault development. I've been involved with that corridor in town. We're building a trail here that's going to make all of that connected. You have a very dense residential population now that's right behind this site. If it's not retail, it's not residential, and it's not senior housing, and it's not office, other than me building a hotel there, I don't know what the township's expectation is for that site long-term. And my view is that you have an incredible check and balance with the master plan. I can't come to you and say, hey guys, it's by right, here's this retail center that I'm building. It's a strip center or it's a Dick's Sporting Goods. We'll see you in the land development process. I have to come back to you in a very collaborative way for you to review that, approve that, make comments, work with the township engineer. That's a very drawn out and distinct process that puts you guys in control of what happens on that site long-term, how it's developed, the way it lays out, the way that it's reflected, and all in a positive, collaborative way. And I'm not asking you guys to give me the keys to go put a Dick's Sporting Goods and a Whole Foods or a Giant or move Walmart over there. It's not what I'm asking. I'm saying I have an incredible tenant for the building that happens to be retail. I've struck out with the amendment that you guys very graciously gave me 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was that we received it. Let me put Care and Share in the building. Give me retail for the building. Let me go out with a very broad marketed approach at this point to all the users in the market, whether it's life science, retail, everything within your village commercial district. That gives me a very wide net to cast. And then I have to come back to you and say, hey, here's what I want to do. Somebody wants to develop this site. They really like the idea of building this small micro, whatever concept it might be. It happens to be retail users, but it's accretive to the township. We work together on a master plan. You guys have a great check and balance. And it's hard for me to attract tenants on a one-off basis without having that net to cast. And I guess my point really being, like I said, it's not retail, it's not office, it's not hospitality, can't do senior housing, I can't do residential. That property just sits there and becomes a blemish for the township. It's 50 acres. It's on a great corner, 63 and 113. I've got great access. People can pull out on the 113. They got maple, they got oak. It does have some good retail components, and there really isn't much ground left in town that's addressable for a retail development or any development on that main corridor there. So I think it's good. I think it's an amenity to the residents. I think the Karen Share is an incredible addition to the community. And I think it's important to Karen Share that they're going to know that they're going to have an ecosystem around them on the property there to help bring customer traffic. So that's my response to that, and my perspective on the property. Yeah.
Asking a question, the 30 commercial imports that we received.
Yeah.
Other than zoning, what were some obstacles that prevented progression of those import groups
I didn't want to come to you guys.
to get zoning?
No, no. I had a feeling when I started on this project that the industrial market and the life science market was sliding. The last thing I wanted to do was bring somebody like Karen Share, an industrial user in that needed relief, and you guys have on your desk approval for development of the site, because you're gonna then, the land's the cherry on top for me. The only way I don't give it back to the bank is if I lease the building. So I shoot them all away and say, guys, when the building's leased, when I'm stabilized, when I'm paying the bills, all open conversations to the dirt. And that was how I handled all those conversations, because I didn't want that to become a headwind for me fixing my problem with carrying the real estate and leasing the building. So that was why I never progressed any of those conversations, and just kind of pushed them off to the side.
So the event that you guys see in front of you, just to provide some guidelines, time next phase. Mike Mucci's comments notwithstanding, I'm not entirely sure how village commercial gets us where we want to be, and I'm not sure that ultimately village commercial will end up being how we try to ultimately get developed. Because by its very nature, village commercial is small track, variety of uses along the main part. This is a 47 to 58 track, that's going to get developed as a master development. So ultimately, I think it's going to be kind of complicated, but I I think the conversation that took place at the zoning building committee was, they have a tenant that most folks endorse. So how do we help get them over the line? And so the construct of the amendment basically says, here's a laundry list of uses, this will fit into that. You can do those in the existing building, so let's try to get that building occupied, utilized, and vibrant, something or another. And then a mechanism that forces them to come back. I think there's a appropriate question of, how does the master plan work and what can we deny and accept, and even once we have it, how enforceable is it? We have MU districts in the township that got developed and then evolved over time, as it were. So I think those are all fair questions. I think the element that we want is, how do we get the building utilized? And how do we then create an opportunity to collectively understand how to help the rest of that part? Because I understand Dave's point around how that track exists today, and I understand the applicant's point of there ultimately will be interest. The cross section of those is retail fronting on 113. Just is. We won't get ourselves out of that dilemma if we're going to develop the rest of that track as something other than life science. So I want to make sure that process is firmly delivered.
Are you confident that, assuming we can get everything set up so that Karen Chair can go there, Karen Chair, we can go in, which we all think is a good idea, for a nice fit with the property and great township. Are you confident that when any future development is proposed and that triggers the master plan element of this, that we're gonna be able to come up with a site design, an overall master plan, but site design that I don't see how it could be village commercial, but or village commercial, but it could certainly complement it more so than strip mall would. There are a lot of things we could do that are in between those two things, so that we get the character without the sort of tight confinement we have in a village. And I don't see anything stopping that here, as long as the master planning can incorporate that kind of look properly.
So I'll respond and then you respond. But if I read between the lines, if I read the uses, I read the concept of master plan. I know that, you know, Whole Foods will be, DOA in a conversation like that. But I absolutely could see a town center on a smaller scale. And that will become a conversation for the township of, do we want a 50-acre town center with a variety of smaller retail applications spread throughout it with internal road network trails?
Because a unified design would work wonderfully on that property. What I don't want to see is these various uses that would be allowed. Separate and, you know, I don't want to have a car wash over here and a Wawa over here, and, you know. I think it should all be looked at very much as one unit. And I don't know how much leeway we have as planning commission to steer towards that in the master planning process.
See, and that's why my concern, and I point to, you know, right, they had a mixture plane that was 10 years old. That's what Madison, I think referring to, and it morphs over time. Because what you think is going to come doesn't necessarily come to fruition. Said, I'm going to swap out this 2-story office building for an apartment building because there's more demand for apartment buildings than for office buildings. And I remember I wasn't part of the board at the time, but that's what happened. That from that development, and I can see that happening too. That these master plans aren't executed 1 or 2 years or 3 years. They're long-term commitments. And I appreciate everything you're saying, that. I also wasn't here when we said we didn't want residential there. And I'm not quite sure at the time when that was out of the question, why it got out of the question. Because like I said, 90% of it borders residential areas. Yeah, you got this big behemoth office buildings in the middle of it. But I also sometimes think even mixed use kind of zoning can be appropriate if you, because I don't see a problem with bringing in residential along with some retail and along with some office. And really make it a truly mix, because we talk about some of these new concepts of villages, the mix of residential with the commercial, and then retail. I can foresee that there too, even like you're saying, in a town center type of concept, build it out in plan.
I think it's very actually residential came from supervisors following,
Yes.
one's discussion about the other property that was associated with Forest Village.
Well, and that might be worth revisiting again, because part of the residential backs up to an apartment building already. Right, so to say another apartment building next to that existing apartment building, to me, far-fetched. And then you can bleed into retail and can bleed into other commercial endeavors and office, still lease out the old original building as an office. So just the most beautiful building around.
You want to react to my comments or my question?
Yeah, so when the answer to the question on the residential, and why I made that comment. So when I bought the real estate, the township had rezoned the 2 other parcels, if I remember correctly, that were affiliated with the site that were zoned AO, with the post next to the post office, then up there by 113. So when I came in and I was looking at the site, and other developers were looking at the site when Nationwide was getting rid of it, everyone's like, we're not doing any more residential, right? And then when we did the first iteration of the text amendment, it was just dead on arrival, and it was a non-starter for us, which is why we went in the direction that we did. In terms of the product that I view there, if this was ever leased, it's not a big box market. It's a small scale infill retail style development. It's a 50-acre site, but that piece of dirt is only 18 acres. So when you trim out roadways, stormwater management, everything else, that's a small scale development. It's too small for most of the big box players out there, right? It's way too small. So I think the point being, I would be limited by the site to do something in a big way there that was large and overwhelmingly intrusive to the neighborhood. So.
I don't disagree with your math. My assumption is that the portion of that parking lot goes away and comes from, and so. So I think one of the things that we're all trying to get our heads around is this concept of a master plan. Can you walk us through procedurally we let them move ahead with. Text amendment that enables Karen Share to get that going, and then hopefully that attracts enough for. The applicant to do some more in that building. And then they come in with a master plan for the rest of the track.
Correct. There is a provision that discussed in the ordinance, and I'll write onto that section. That talks about a master plan, so it is basically, I would call it a preliminary plan where they have to come back. To the planning commission and to the board of supervisors, the governing body, and show what they are planning to do with the remaining tract. So it's, like I said, more like a preliminary plan that has to come before you and, you get more of a chance to talk about the uses.
So let me be more specific.
Thank you.
I understand what the master plan is, but
Okay.
my question is, what kind of teeth does it have? So Kristen said it defines the uses, it describes the layout, building size, building configuration, interior roads.
Parking areas, traffic
That,
circulation.
that
density.
sounds great,
Mhm.
but if we then turn around, if all those uses are already enumerated, just like a preliminary plan, what right do we have to say, we don't really like that? If they put a depiction that shows 30% restaurant, 40% retail, and, you know, the remaining 30 is right, and then they come back later and go, we were gonna find tenants, so it became 80%, you know, can we hold them to the percentages that were depicted in the master plan? Like, the master plan sounds great, but I think to Scott's question, 3 years later, can we point to the master plan and say, well, you can't do that because that's the master plan?
Yeah, I think, I don't want to play lawyer, but I think we
No.
could word the ordinance as such that the master plan does have that way. It is a preliminary plan, any substantial changes to that master plan has to come back before the governing body. Would you agree with that?
I would, to your point about like off that, what did you say? It was an office building turned into apartments or, you know, you were saying there was a master plan and it showed office and then they came back later. And it, yeah, so, yeah, so there's two things that I see in my 30 years of doing this, right? Like, we did age qualified, you know, 55 and older communities, right? And then that market changed, right? Those demographics changed and we went back and undid the 55 and older. And we ran into a problem because the parking and the size of the buildings weren't really great for people who weren't empty nesters, you know, and buildings become empty, like Montgomery Township is filled with vacant buildings and it looks like crap and their mall is empty. So zoning and the market are not always hand in hand, right? So even though we write stuff that makes it look great, like that village commercial with the live, work, play and all that, I've been doing that for the last number of years. Things change, you know, and you have to have the ability, and sometimes we will come back and say, yeah, that retail now needs to be a restaurant, or that restaurant's not doing great, and now we need to have personal service shops like that. That's real, and for me to stand here and say that it's not gonna happen would be untruthful, you know, that does occur. So the master plan is something that at least lays out the site, you know, and we know that the retail can't be more than 15,000 square feet, you know, that much we've locked in here. We can lay out the roads and have that village feel, you know, of, you know, the walkways and the integration, at least get the feel of a village walkable community with the benches and the lamps and the trails and where the parking goes and the landscaping. But the uses might shuffle, you know, we can lay it out, but when the rubber meets the road, things could get shuffled around. But that's just how it goes because the market, it changes.
And the 15,000 square feet, right?
Yeah.
And the other point, you know, having the master plan in place early, at least in terms of how the land will be laid out, is that you can, at that very early stage, look out for the neighbors. You get the correct
Exactly.
in there, you make sure the big buildings aren't, you know, you make sure that you have the least impact on the neighbors.
Well, the way it's written today, they can't put a shovel in the ground. They can occupy and refurbish the existing building. They can't build anything until the master plan.
Right, and we still have the AO dimensional criteria, so the neighbors are, I mean, what's there now as far as the criteria for setbacks and all, we're not changing any of that, so that part's good. But with the zoning in place, at least Zach can take phone calls and tell people like, yes, we can entertain that, so instead of us coming in here on spec and laying something out and telling you this is what we envision, he will now be able to go out and talk to people in real life and come in here with real people who are interested because the zoning will be in place. Very difficult to do master designs without having people who say, we can get you in there. We can do land development. We know how long that takes, but without zoning, it's very, right? You can't really have conversations because there's no timeline,
Where did the 15,000 square foot number come from? You see this year?
the VC.
And out of curiosity, like, what's the size of a Trader Joe's?
Well, but I think,
Oh, 13,000. So that could fit there.
I'd like a Trader Joe's.
Okay.
Get that in.
But we can go to a Trader Joe's if you pass the ordinance, you know, maybe we could do that.
Possibly, I know it couldn't be a real grocery, big full-size grocery.
Yeah, the
store
big guys wouldn't come here.
Or a Target or anything, nothing like that
Yeah.
could ever hit
Right.
15,000.
Right, but if we get,
Middle-sized people, even though Allen's are relatively small too, I hear Alden's.
you do.
Are they bigger than that?
what it could look like, I mean, is. The retail is, what's outside of Newell Village. Evanston.
Mhm.
And that's, well, if it were to be something like, that, that's the kind of retail I would think is. There's not a national retail in there, but you get a lot of cool stuff. And it's the winding, you know, it's kind of like.
Yep.
I know Trader Joe's, I want Trader.
That's not good.
That would be.
Yeah, and I could envision something with walking trails, you know,
Up this big.
curvy roads that create, you know, some very green spaces, maybe a playground, some sport, of it, creating that feel. But
There's also a great spot within that to be a community type. Pavilion.
Gathering.
Yeah, gathering spot, different things.
Which would be nice with,
Great, with all that.
Karen Chair.
Yeah, there's, but having said all that, not that much room, as you said, for all that stuff.
so the purpose of the amendment, the way it was constructed, was to say we can bifurcate the two discussions into what are we comfortable allowing to happen now in the building with the respective tenant that makes sense and people support, and then a mechanism to resolve the decision making.
Yeah, and I think what you might direct the amendment is, it is the two pieces, right? The existing
Right.
building and then future development.
Right.
So can we split it and just do the existing building? And make the modifications to AO for the existing building?
We would not like that. I mean, the ordinance was set up so that we have, this works in the building, the existing building, these uses are permitted by right, and these uses are permitted by conditional use. And then if you want to do anything new, you come in with a master plan, and these are the uses that you're permitted by right, and these are the uses you're permitted by a conditional use. That way, we can get some momentum with Karen Share, and now we can start marketing what's in the building, but market this master plan. So we don't have to keep coming back. Like I said, we can't talk to anybody about the ground, as Zach calls it, without zoning in place.
And also, it's not a good idea to be zoning, big changes for individual buildings.
But I guess my thought is. How do we, if we treat it all as one? How do we? How do we come to a final conclusion and agreement on the master plan?
We don't have to until that doesn't happen yet.
I know, but
Okay,
but they're asking for the amendment now, but the master plan happens.
What are your
tomorrow,
questions about the master plan?
so I'd kind of like to see that. I mean, I'm sure Zach has some sketches in his head,
I really don't.
don't you have?
Well,
No, I mean, I'm not a retail developer. Like this is, you know, I'm not, I don't, I know there's demand for it, but
Right.
conceptually, that's a lot of planning and design and engineering and
Right.
marketing. Like, I don't know. And if I brought you something today, it would be something that's so far fetched from any market interest. It would just be me, you know, so it wouldn't provide you a lot of value. But the scenario that I do see is you guys give me this, we get this done, right? I then go out and I find a user or I find a prospective developer that wants to come in and do this development, right? And they're gonna come to me and say, here's my sketch plan, and here's my structure, and here's what we need to get done. And I'm gonna turn around and say, okay, I have to develop a master plan with Lower Safford Township. Come right back to you guys. Guys, here's what we wanna do. Here's a master plan that shows how all this works. You guys go, we don't like the way that lays out. We don't like the setback, whatever it might be. And we work for a plan, and it's either feasible for somebody or it's not feasible for somebody. That I don't know. But I think the point being, that's how I view the progress on that site unfolding. In the event there's interest in developing that ground and I'm able to piece something together, it's very collaborative.
The nice thing about that too, for our developers, there's not a lot of money being spent with a master plan. If they come in with a master plan and you hate it, they pack and go. They don't have to spend a lot of time with engineering and surveying and putting things together with like you would with a preliminary plan. So it is a nice way for him to market it and people to come in, show you something, see if you like what they're proposing. If it's something they can live with, something you can live with. But with the zoning in place, they know that it's at least worth trying.
So I get it, and I do get why we don't like deferring on the second component, because then you can't go market.
Exactly.
So, Michelle and Mike, if they come in with a master plan that we collectively, that we have, not just the planning commission, but the township, don't like, what is our ability to deny a master plan?
Well, would generally be at the planning commission level, if you won't deny master plan. Saying, please go back to the drawing board and work on our requests. And so ideally, and typically the way that would work out is that they would, and in the planning commission and the client and the applicant would come to some sort of middle ground.
It
and
says it
agree
has to
on
be
the master
approved
plan.
by the supervisor.
But ultimately, it would be approved by the board of supervisors. But the reality is, the whole situation, Lower Safford Township's never had a master plan process. For this AO district, they could turn around tomorrow and develop it or propose development based on the existing code, R&D, engineering technology, microbrewery, and parking in the front, a field, buildings all over the place. Not at all to the satisfaction of the planning commission. Right.
So, and then in the scenario, they come with a master plan.
It says it has to be approved by the board of supervisors.
Yes, but
So-
let me play devil's advocate. You do a master plan and you satisfy all conditions of this ordinance, all the uses that are in the ordinance, and they still don't like it. You might fight them and say, we met your ordinance.
Well, it says
So
it has to
that's
be
what-
approved by the board of supervisors.
But if we decline it, then you could legally fight us for it, because it does meet everything, you know, the AO.
So like with the setbacks and everything still apply, like if they decide to do street facing retail on 113, is the 200 foot still apply?
Yeah, all the
Setbacks are-
area setbacks would be unchanged as they are today.
So if there's something, Scott, it's what I was trying to get from you, if there's something that you really wanna see there. You wanna see larger setbacks, you wanna see more parking for restaurants, or I've seen where they limit the amount of restaurants in the development like this. Because there's too little parking sometimes, now is the time to say it, so that we could get it in the ordinance, if you know.
I bet you anybody who does a master plan for something like this is gonna come back for a parking issue.
I bet you they are.
I bet you they're gonna be back here asking for an amendment for parking. I don't see how you make this work.
I think
With
they're
all
gonna
these
be,
different uses and all the separate parking requirements.
yeah, they're gonna be asking for amendments to a lot of
Something.
things.
Now, I don't, without having it laid out and us just, I don't see how you meet everything without coming back. But at least this gets somebody interested to lay it out on a master.
So, refer to the members, you know, I think there's enough of a mechanism that we'll be able to facilitate the process. And I don't know what changes would be made or what a delay would give us if we defer the second portion. We locked it off and said, no, you can only do it in the existing building, come back. I wish there was, I just don't know that there is, so. I think this is a path forward if everyone else.
I'm so good about moving forward with it. I read through it and again, I'm not gonna get the parking in, but, I think it all makes sense. And I think that hopefully it can be done in a way that very much complements the village. Side.
Before we vote, questions or comments?
I have a suggestion.
I see it. I know.
Not ready to vote, it's.
Dave?
Why don't we make it a community center and take it away from these people?
How much money is
If the Bow Foundation could vote.
If the price is right, anything's possible.
I have a quick question. This is currently zoned AO. Exactly what does that encompass?
And, name, address, please.
Bob Curran, I'm at 125 Fairway Drive in Harlem.
I'll let the zoning officer answer that.
Administrative and office uses originally. Back in. See, I don't know when the district was created. After 1948. So, and then it evolved into more appropriate uses for the times. Into research and technology, engineering, research and development, engineering, technology, and that sort of thing. Okay. And
That's
so
where the light industrial came into play.
not light industrial. That's
Light
when,
manufacturing.
right, it has an accessory. That was only there as an accessory. Right. So this district within the township has seen an evolution. Okay, from the beginning.
Okay.
And it included warehousing as an accessory to
That's
the
right.
principal function.
As an accessory.
You have questions for that?
Yeah. It was a thought that as written, is the voted on today, it doesn't get a chance to, even if the concept, if we're here, the concept. No, to,
So here's,
you make some.
so here's the timeline, if you have any specific suggestions now, of course, make them. But the timeline would work out in that we'll present this to the board of supervisors at their work session next month. The first Tuesday. It's the first Tuesday. And then the first Wednesday, the board will consider authorizing the advertisement of this ordinance. It will then go to county for review. This is required, of course, and then we'll receive, in the meantime, the planning commission will be reviewing it and thinking about it, and then we'll receive the county's review in September. And then we'll be back in front of you in September for any final recommendations. And if there are none, and it's as it was advertised, then it goes right to the advertised hearing of beginning of October, first Wednesday. For adoption.
Tonight, all we need from us is a recommendation. Should we?
If that's what the planning commission would like to do.
Yeah, no, thank you. One of my questions was the process, so Mr. Mike. I'm Lori, 470 Wexford Circle. And my question was on the process and Mike, just so I understand, it's from here to recommend to go to the board and there's some type of advertisement about the zoning change. It goes to the county. And then in the meantime, is there something in writing the planning commission is working on before September or October? That I didn't follow the last part.
So the proposed ordinance is as it is right now, and get you a copy of that. It is proposed as it is, and that will be advertised for adoption. It's required in the MPC, the state requires that whenever you amend a zoning ordinance, We have to go through a certain process. Part of that process is advertising it in the newspaper a couple of times before the hearing. And sending it to the county planning agency for review prior to adoption. Okay, so that's all part of it. So it's anticipated to go and go to the county for review and be advertised.
And the new zoning is proposed to be what?
The zoning is not changing.
So it's still
Zoning
AO?
Tax event. That's correct.
So the definition of it's changing. It's keeping that original one that we talked about. But then, as Kristen said, it's essentially adding the content of village commercial. So what's acceptable in village commercial is now also going to be acceptable in this property,
All the
Just for this
non-resident.
property.
other than residential.
Yeah.
For the
not
AO, for the AO district and the entire township, that's what,
And
that's why I opened with that little synopsis, is that this can't, this, from a planning perspective, it should just be appropriate for a developer at a certain time for a specific use, it should be appropriate for the township as a whole. Okay, so the township as a whole has this AO district on at 355 Maplewood Avenue, and it also has an AO district under, as an underlying district in Alderford Park. Right,
That's the other part I didn't understand, so there
Yes.
is. So there's 3 AO locations, this would 2, Alder Park and this 355 Maple.
right.
Okay, just a couple of comments. I see the previous use as the office you had basically day and night. You know, you had people go out to the property and leave in the evening. I guess I'm concerned, my first thought is about traffic. How that would change in that area. I do want to say, I love Care and Share. I love donating, going through your shops. I know you need more space, and I think you'd be a great neighbor. I'm not understanding all of the ramifications of this, but if it's affecting more than one property in the zoning area, I'm just kind of concerned. Did you say we haven't? There hasn't been anything like this come up before to the board or to the planning commission? Is this the first time it's been approached?
Oh, no, not at all. It's a standard ordinance amendment that occurs on a regular basis, no matter what municipality you're in.
But is it the first time somebody's asked to change from the AO definition of the uses or broaden that? No?
It was your master plan comment. It's the first time we had the master plan.
Oh, right, the Lower Southford Township has never had a master plan requirement in the zoning ordinance. So, from a planning perspective, I feel as if that's a positive thing to have a master plan component, because it allows another vehicle if the planning commission would like to see tweak to a plan, they have more leverage for that. Otherwise, an applicant can do whatever is allowable in the zoning ordinance, which is very broad brush. It's a very typical type of zoning ordinance. It's called Euclidean zoning. And it doesn't get specific as to exactly how something might look after it's developed. Okay, but the master plan process would allow that to be discussed.
So let's do this. We covered a lot of ground tonight. Or, specifically, this isn't about the specifics of the zoning, it's about the process, is what we're discussing tonight. Why don't you call the township, they'll give you a copy of the proposed ordinance and the amendment language, so you can read it in detail. It's long, so if you want to take some time, we'll also give you what the timeline and process steps will be. And there will be a period of time in September where you can come in front of us again and in front of the supervisors, if any comments about lighting, parking, traffic, and all. Okay?
Thank you, Manus. I appreciate that. I do want to say though, I think I hear Lower Southford's never had a master plan. So I guess I'm just questioning how you would propose to review one. But I will do as you suggested, Manus. Thank you.
And there's a terminology there, we do have a mixed use ordinance that uses a lot of the mechanics of a master plan, so I think we've been through something like this before, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Betty,
Steve Duddy, 483 Cheswick in Harleysville. I'm just concerned, I love Care and Share, and I love that you get to use something for the building, because I know it's been sitting for a while. I'm just worried when you keep saying developer, developer, developer. Are there circumstances where they're going to outside of the building and all of the office space and all of that? Is there an opportunity for developers of restaurants or something like that to actually go into the parking area and so this could be a whole big,
That's it,
That's
that's exactly
right.
that's what the discussion was, is that
yeah,
this will allow Care and Share to go into the building,
yeah,
and then they can't develop the rest of that track until they come in with the master plan and we agree on what that is, because that's exactly what's gonna happen.
Right.
So it will be, what other uses are gonna go on
Okay.
that property. You see that.
and you don't think you're gonna lose any control over your will to be able to keep it village looking and moderate in the future? You think somewhere along the line, no matter how many times people come back, you don't think you're gonna be able to say, okay, now we're afraid you're gonna fight us, and then maybe we'll
I
have to
guess the
back
result
down?
of this ordinance change will have more input,
Okay,
which I think is good for the township.
okay. I'm just concerned because I didn't want you guys to lose out. I don't want you to lose out, Zach, but I don't want the township to lose out either with making something that's too big for where we are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think,
Yeah.
my view on it is to that comment, they don't have a master plan requirement now. So
Uh-huh.
like as it stands today, I could go do a life science development there by right, and they don't have any type of master plan control.
Great.
I'm offering a control that they don't have in their ordinance today. And I'm doing that to get everybody comfortable that I'm not gonna go crazy here.
Right,
And so I think it's accretive to add that, but
If you wanted to do the life science too.
what?
If you wanted to do the life science, then I
Yeah, just giving it as a, yeah.
Stuff like that. So. Good discussion. I mean, at this point, it's gonna be another 2 months before this even gets enacted, just given the timeline that Mike went through. Are your members okay with sending it on to the supervisors for the recommendation for the bidding process?
Yeah.
But and just from what I was saying before, there's still going to be a chance for us to take a look at the details and maybe basically.
I believe so, right? Come back and suppose that makes a recommendation that it desires.
Understanding once it's advertised.
Yeah.
So, yeah, once it's advertised, any changes means we have to start the process over. So that would mean that Care and Share cannot get in the building.
So I think that's just critical to me, is that I want all the feedback, but if we could do it before it's advertised, we respond very quickly. If there's a way that we can work through this before it's advertised, that additional month is a deal killer for us. And for me,
Supervisors will recognize that and ask us for their.
That would be great. So if you have anything, please send your comments, any suggested changes. We can work through staff. Anything.
I've never seen Claire frantically waiting before.
Claire,
Well,
yes.
I would like to offer that if there, perhaps the time frame that we could give some comments before it's advertised, because I don't want to get to the point where it's submitted to the county for our review, we have some comments that the planning commission.
now?
Yes.
Yeah,
But unofficially, it
Yeah.
hasn't been uploaded.
and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be, it have to be, it could just, you know, I could look at the copy that you emailed me or that you sent around earlier, and I need to get back to our staff, review it, and just send some comments in an email, so you can think about that before it goes to us. Perfect. So we can get our comments in before we don't have to worry about having to integrate anything in the application.
Great, thank you for that.
So when I go through this, planning commission recommends that the supervisors begin the process. But we strongly ask them to share a copy of the proposed language with the county and solicit feedback from planning commission members before they initiate that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claire. That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
thank
All right, nice to see you guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, the storage review of the.
So this would be a very. short-
How old is this?
This was brought in front of the planning commission, I'll say it as a formality, because it was officially requested by an applicant. And this is an AT&T proposed cellular antenna project on an existing facility, on an existing pole. And it triggered the historic checkbox, I'll say, that they are required to look into when, from the state's perspective, when they're proposing a change. And so this change is so minute that it's on top of a 95-foot pole, and they're changing the height from 98 feet to 99 feet, and 100 feet is allowable. They're wondering if there's any historic impact in the area. There are no historic properties, as you know. We have a historic district, as you know. Everything in the area was constructed after 60s. So there's really, it's a rhetorical question, but it's something that we had to bring to the planning commission because it was officially requested by now. So there you go.
So my view is there's one there today, and we're gonna put a replacement there with 1 foot longer.
You're not gonna know.
Are you? That 5 foot pedal.
Do you need something?
If the planning commission has no comment, then I'll deliver that message.
Cool with that.
Thank you.
Raise it a foot.
And now the minor land development. Those rules.
Yes, so I made, in response to the planning commission's comments last meeting, I made those amendments to the memo so we could see what those effects were, and also updated the table which shows the projects that the township has wanted to take through a less strict process, I'll say. And where exactly those projects would fit if an ordinance with these standards were adopted. So what you see is the majority of the projects that were in the waiver land development category would actually end up being a full land development as a requirement. Having a threshold would actually make it as a requirement. There are some that would just be exempt, would be able to be handled administratively. But only a couple of those would be brought through the minor process. And the minor process, to be more specific, would just be that they would not be required road widening. But the preliminary plan would also not be required, but it's been Lower Southbridge Township, not really policy, but it's a bit more accepted to waive preliminary plan anyway. And so the intent with coming up with the minor land development at a staff level, minor land development threshold was to make it easier for these smaller project applicants to get through their project without having to go through the full gauntlet of a land development.
So I apologize, my questions for some reason seem to be very procedural tonight. So I really appreciate you putting together the comparison of other municipalities and seeing how we would level into that. And, you know, I was the proponent that said, hey, we keep getting folks suggesting this, let's put some structure. If we say, okay, this looks good, let's give it a try. And then we find out that like, hey, we're seeing a lot of stuff going in, 5,000 square feet is 50 by 100, and like, you know, this isn't what we expected. What is our ability to modify over time and maybe lower the size or like that?
Well, you can always propose an amendment to the zones to tweak it. Because of the practicality.
Is it zoning or is it land development? We go into the land development board and say, this doesn't require a full land development because it's under 5,000 square feet. If we decide that's too big and we're going to knock it down to 2,500 in a couple of years, because we don't like what we're seeing, Can't go and modify the ordinance to.
It might be both zoning and sound, we'll have to look at it to see exactly where the ordinance would be appropriate to go. But the long and the short of it is, yes, it just as easily as you could change this now, and change it in the future if it's not practical for lower some.
But to that point, then I'd almost start more conservative then. And that way you can always bump, it's easier to bump up the number than it is to drop it down. Cause it's just like,
To be fair, I said 5,000, it's 5,000, or just 25.
right, so even with 2,500 building. If you wanted to drop that down, if that seems big. 2,500 is a pretty big building.
S- 60 by 40.
Small house. From the building.
Yeah, well, total building square footage, so they're going to get a long story house.
Right.
What do you got going on?
And that point is like, that, I'm just thinking out loud here, if Henning said, I'm gonna put a 60-foot by 40-foot building. Blah, blah, blah. Pretty big, and they would probably be able to go through. It'd be exempt from. The land development.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong,
Well,
is this non-residential?
I thought so.
right, you would be a single family home addition, and it would just be a building permit process.
But you get where I'm going, like, that's a pretty big pole barn.
It's the same thing, so we have, those are accessory structures, and so they fall under a separate set of requirements in it. So for accessory structures, they have to meet the 30% rule, which is they're not allowed to exceed 30% of the square footage of the size of the principal building, the house. And if it does, it has to go through conditional use approval, we'll know what that means for the planning commission advertising.
So that would supersede, so if somebody came in and said, I'm gonna put a 60 by 40 pole barn. That's 2,400 square feet, they have a 4,000 square foot house, even though they're under the 2,500 square foot limit, you say that's within 30% of the.
Well, no, it's not, like, we wouldn't be looking at this section of the, it's just commercials because it's not residential.
That I had sort of that says this is only for non-residential.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, I'm sorry, yeah,
okay.
the answer is yes.
That's what you said.
But it was for non-residential.
Non-residential property, not non-residential uses.
Right.
Even for non-residential, go back, Penny's put a 60 by 40 pole barn. Or whatever, an addition. They would be exempt.
Right. It would still have to be, because it's residential, you have to meet grading, ENS, stormwater management. Second. And so they still need to meet all of that, but it won't be land development, because in accordance with the NPC state, they accept single family.
They're talking about Henny's.
Pennies, residential, but commercial,
Commercial.
Pennies, grocery store. They put a,
So,
okay, you meant commercial, okay. That's a.
Well, we want to
that's pretty
propose,
big.
propose a different number.
And then that's what I'm saying, start low and because then. Because if you start at zero, nothing gets changed, right? Everybody's still doing the full process. So you start slowly building up the number. And that's what I said, even half of that, like a 1,200.
That's why I put everything that the board felt deserved an easier process because of the size.
Right.
Everything is in that table. With the,
But they're all, I'm gonna say, they're all 1,000, 1,200.
they vary.
They're pretty small.
The school was, the pavilion is 8,000 total, but 790 per foot. The
Yeah,
main building.
and
The school was 5,000.
Dracus was 400 square feet, everybody else was 300, IT Landis was 300 square feet.
The Indian Valley Middle School expansion project was 5,480.
Right. So they're going through the full process.
But again, the board felt at the time that that was a small project that they wanted.
They thought 5,480 square feet.
That's what I'm saying, right? And so when we see these projects again, that's why we at staff level felt it was appropriate to try to find some sort of threshold because we're taking these as they come.
So that fit under
So the
the,
next applicant that comes in and they look pretty small with our development, is there an easier process that we have?
right,
Right now, we'll say, oh yeah, you go through waiver land development. But again, looking at the details of the waiver of land development, that's not it at all. You're not waiving land development.
right,
You still have to go through everything
right.
that you have to do with the regular full scale land development. And so given that we've already determined that township would like a less strict process of development, what are those thresholds? Okay,
So minor land development wouldn't come in front of that.
oh, yes, it will, yeah.
Well, I'm just looking. Page 3, so it's still required, let's see.
Yeah, it has to go through, see, minor land development is still land development, it would still have to go through the full. Development. So that's why it's like a two-step approach, what are the thresholds, and then what would you be giving to the minor land developments that you would normally have to do as a full land development, but you don't have to apply during minor land development, like what I was mentioning before, like with the street trees or with a buffer or with something. Right? Does it even work? Otherwise, it's not really worth having a minor land development, you have to apply to the. So we'll still see it, so.
Yeah, if we start seeing stuff come through, we can recommend not approving it, and we can recommend notifying. Okay. So what do you need from us, a recommendation for the supervisors to?
Or any other recommendation for the planning commission would like to see, what to not require during the minor land development process, or any adjustments to the threshold. Or if you guys would just like to see what you mentioned last meeting, be pushed to the board of supervisors. Okay, it's good. Okay. Yeah, we don't need a motion, right? Discuss with the board. Thank you.
You, stormwater management.
Great.
So tonight, we're just presenting to you the stormwater management ordinance. You only got it last week, so I really want you to take a look at it. We gave you a nice color code in ordinance there, so you can see what is different. The major point of this ordinance is twofold. One is we have to pass an ordinance to meet DEP requirements. I've said this before, but it sometimes still amazes me. The township needs a permit from DEP in order for rainwater runoff to flow to streams from their own properties. Any township owned roads, any township owned properties that flow to a stream, you need what's called an MS4 permit, a municipal separate storm sewer system permit. The township needs that. So DEP regulates that. It's something we have to provide an annual report for the township to submit to them, stating we're meeting 6 minimum control measures. We can talk about that at a later date. Because tonight I'm only presenting to you the ordinance. And that has separate requirements. So the township is required to pass certain aspects of the model ordinance DEP gives you for the MS4 permit. So that's one part of this new ordinance. The second part of this new ordinance is currently within Lower Southborough Township, you are only required to submit stormwater management, best management practices. If you have a subdivision or land development, or if you are in the East Branch Perkiomen watershed. Look, Mike's gonna put up a map. Most of Lower Southborough Township is in the Skippack Creek watershed, not the East Branch Perkiomen. So when he gets this map up here, you'll see that it only applies to a small area of the municipality. So the red lines on this map are the different watershed areas. Everything at the top of the map. And maybe we should have oriented them on the Harleysville Pike.
So at the top, the
Harleysville Pike is by that yellow on the right hand side. Yep,
This is Harleysville Pike,
yep,
and this is Main Street.
yes, thank you. So everything from,
You want me to rotate it?
Yeah, just the way we're used to looking at the.
yeah, so. It's hard to see that.
Alright. So
That's
here's,
first.
here's Main Street.
Mhm.
And then here's Harleysville Pike. Okay.
So everything to the left, could you go down Harleysville Pike again? Everything to the left of Harleysville Pike, basically, it's the red lines, is in the East Branch Perkiomen. That's the only place where if someone comes in, like Mr. Mast on occasion, comes in with a large addition, he will say, well, I really don't have to do any stormwater management in that area. Most of the surrounding municipalities require stormwater management. And what we're proposing in this ordinance, and this is, we put this number out there, is anything over 1,500 square feet would require somebody to do some sort of stormwater management. So Mike was talking about area, and before the meeting tonight, I measured the room. So 1,500 square feet is the width of the room, and from that back door to about the posts. That's 1,500 square feet. So if you surrounded this area, you would, with new impervious coverage, you would be required to do some sort of stormwater management. So we don't want Mr. Mass to get all the work in the municipality, so there. A lot of municipalities, other watersheds that are studied require something or allow something called a small projects. It's appendix B in the ordinance. It allows a homeowner, not necessarily a residential, only for residential properties, to do this work on their own without the help of an engineer. So I'd like you to think about the 1,500 square foot limit and then look at appendix B.
How can they do it without an expert telling them what needs to be done?
Because we give them,
You're giving them all the guidelines.
yes, the guidelines in there, so that's why I'm asking you to look at it. So just, for comparison, Worcester Township requires some sort of stormwater management at 1,200 square feet for a smaller size lot. Borough of Lansdale, anything over 1,000 square feet, Hatfield, anything over 1,000 square feet, unless you're putting in a swimming pool, then you have to do stormwater management. Franconia is 1,000 square feet on a lot that is up to 25,000, about half an acre, let's say. And then Joel Manson is 1,500 square feet also.
Most of the zoning to the left with the red line is probably on one day.
No, in down to the right. Down there is all the way.
This does.
In the skip back watershed,
It just does not apply.
Okay.
Correct.
Right.
East Branchburg. Right,
But East Frankfurt is.
it's the one to the left, right,
As opposed to that all the way.
no. No,
So R1A would be generally down,
to the right,
it's all down. It's-
Okay.
It's basically,
sorry, guys, everything to the bottom, fine.
except for the village of Ladder Rock, which has some R2 and some EC. And then you'll have the R2 kind of incorporated above, I wanna say like Forest Road in general. I'll pull up the zoning map. But it kind
I
of.
off the plan, it's everything's R1A.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, for instance, the old Walmart is in East Branch, this point. So the whole corridor that, Field and Genesis Fitness and all that's in the East Branch of the.
Could you just explain to me again, right now, currently, in different areas of the townships, there are different requirements because the Perkiomen East Branch Program Group was treated differently. So when we were looking at the new ordinance recommended, everything's then treated the same, or it's still separate. Different for the Perkiomen.
No, we're gonna make everything.
Everything
safe.
would be safe.
Everything safe, yes, except. Unless you disturb more than an acre of ground, if you disturb more than
That's
an acre
all
of
it
ground, then the conservation
Then
district
you're
does it all.
1 or 5,
Then
if you
you're
get a
right.
permit, if you
Yes,
get the
correct.
permit.
Correct. One other thing to add to this, as you all are aware, we get waiver requests all the time for RCP pipe outside right of way. 4-to-1 slopes, we're now allowing 3-to-1 slopes, all under requiring RCP pipe for within purpose. All typical waiver process. So I suggest that you look at that and then we discuss it again next month.
I think she wants us to get the,
So.
I think she wants us to read the whole thing.
Any questions?
Well, you can cover a bunch of.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Right now, in the Skipback Township, in the Skipback Creek watershed, you could literally pave an acre, and I think you could argue you're not required to do any storm management, so even I would have been, some changes need to be made to that. Speaking as a resident. What's that?
That is not where I thought you were going.
Well, I'm a resident of the township as well, so, I think sensible regulations.
No comment. I did look over the draft and I do want to say thank you to the plan commission, Michelle and Bert, but it looks like you've added a lot of additional things that are looking after the neighboring residents and the impact on that. So I like the color coding. I see what the township added. And I know it wasn't directly related to our comments, but it's nice to be aware that you guys are responding like that. And again, it looks like there's a number of good improvements for the environment and for the community. And I thank you.
Okay. Any other issues, anything, Kathy?
Can I go back to the subject, go back to the back door, the shorts building? I know. If we proceed with this AO change. And then. He subdivides the property. The developer wants to buy the
You
property.
can't do that without master plan.
That's what I was gonna ask, okay.
You can't
But then-
subdivide without master plan. So once the application comes in to subdivide. The property owner, which might not even be this existing property owner, right, might not even know about the ordinance. So as soon as it hits our desk, then we reach out to them and say, well, you need to submit a master plan requirements.
Okay, so,
Is the master plan apply just to the, like, would it apply to each of the subdivided parcels, or?
That's right. So in order to subdivide at all, submit a master plan. Right? And then, once that master plan is approved, and then the preliminary plan is approved, and the final plan is approved. Then they need to comply with all of the approvals, and if there are any changes proposed. Then they have to come back in front of the township with an amended master plan. Start that whole process, not over again, but amend the master plan.
That was actually on. Subdivides all the road frontage, Augustville. Yep. Okay. Does that require him to come into the master plan for all 50 acres?
Yes,
And is the buyer of the portion of 113 obliged to adhere to the master plan? Or he
So
can't
the-
complete the sale?
so
Like,
the-
I'm just trying to understand, like, somebody
So-
buys it and says, well, we will tax.
so once a proposal for the subdivision of the property is made, an application is made to the township. It triggers the master plan requirement for the entire property. For all 50 acres, 47 plus acres. Goes through the master plan process, is approved. And then ultimately, they implement what they were approved to do. Which means if it was subdivisions, then all these other lots are now being sold off. To whoever, however many lots, let's say there's 7 or 8 different lots that they propose as part of the master plan. 7 or 8 different owners. If they propose something in the future that is not in accordance with the master plan, they have to come back in for the entire original tract and amend that master plan.
But the house is right, there's 15 acres, the minimum lot size, right? With the amendments. I think, isn't that what that in the amendment, that he wrote up 15 acre minimum?
We didn't change any areas.
Was that existing then?
The area in bulk requirements, conventional bulk requirements would not change.
So there's 15 acres on one side, and
Yeah, I thought it was on the top of my head.
But under existing conditions, the owner of the property should come in and ask to subdivide the street front of Harleysville Pike without a master plan.
they could only develop with that as well as time.
Right, because they don't get the new, the changes.
So they come back.
So, yeah, the net lot size today is required to be able to 15.
15 acres, right, so today they're split into threes.
Good.
But that's what the point of my thing is, I agree with you about front wall 13. David helped me measure that out to the parking lot, that's 400 feet. So it's more than 200-foot setback. So you could put a strip of whatever there. And have plenty of space between 113 and that, and just sell all that 15 acre.
But see, you can't do that without the master.
Right, then right, because you'd have to comply with the master plan.
Right. So like they can't, so if they applied tomorrow for a subdivision,
Oh, tomorrow, right, it'd have to be 15 acres.
then they would only be locked into the existing ordinance.
Right.
And then we would hit the pause button on proposed amendments, because that kind of changes things.
Right.
Okay, it's.
But I'm saying even after, if we adopted the amendments in October,
Right.
and then he says, okay, a developer wants to buy 113 frontage. I'm gonna sell 15 acres up front along 113,
Master plan.
then the master.
For just the 15 acres.
No, forever,
I don't know if it says that here.
forever. Because you're subdividing the entire tract. It's the entire tract that's subject.
All right, then I think we need to, if that's what you wanna do, say that in here, because right now it says all properties proposed for development, which is only 15 acre. For develop shall be developed in accordance with the master plan that has been approved by the board of supervisors. That meets the following requirements. So maybe we should say all properties proposed for development for the
Go
entire
back.
AO district.
Go back. Should have been before that.
Go
So,
back one page.
I think so.
so the
Michael.
tract or lot, a tract or lot on which land development is proposed pursuant to the subdivision land development. Needs to comply with the section that requires a master plan.
But that's only the land development, so that's only the 15 acres, that's proposed for development.
Well, let's make sure we're getting it right.
Okay, master plan should be prepared for any property existing at the time of adoption of this chapter is initially proposed for subdivision or land development. Subdivided properties that are intended to be developed at a later date shall be subject to this initial master plan. Okay.
Well, I don't know how we require somebody who. Madison owns 15 acres, how do you require him, and they're not selling the other portions, how do you require,
And comply with.
yeah,
Zach's
with the master plan?
Yeah, they're bound to the,
But they don't own that other, they don't own that other parcel.
No,
they're
they only
bound
have to,
master
they
plan.
have to look at the master plan as it affects their property and comply with that. They don't have
But
to go,
who's gonna prepare the master plan?
the person who initially subdivides the property.
But I don't see how that's gonna work, because you might subdivide 15 acres, right? And you are then gonna be required
And when I
to
do
tell
that-
Dennis what to do with his 30 acres?
No,
That
the
he enjoys?
township is gonna tell Manus what he can do with his 30 acres, not the owner.
And Mike said it before, there's two scenarios, he subdivides before. The master plan goes into effect or,
Mhm.
right? And then that,
but no, I'm sorry, that's not a scenario, but that's not what they're proposing.
Yeah, it's not.
So what's on the table right now is actually, you're just changing this a township. Proposed ordinance amendment to allow more use of this property, incorporating not this property, AO district as a whole in the township. Incorporated master plan requirements. And
Okay, so we got that change,
right,
okay? Then before Zach even gives us a master plan for that property. He sells off 15 acres long,
you can't sell off unless you go through an official subdivision.
Subdivision.
It's all subdivided, true.
Okay. So I think we.
Okay,
If I-
okay.
All properties proposed for development and we add or subdivision. Shall be developed in accordance with the
To
master.
restate it, so it's
So as
clear
long as
for
you
everyone.
Yes.
And then as long as we're revised subdivided parcel is beholden to the master plan, not that, But this is why everyone should go through the language, go through the wording.
And you want to state it clearly, I mean, Mike may know it, he's got it right, but we want to make it really obvious to everyone.
Think about that with the Mainland Point, when, cause Wawa ultimately bought, they subdivided that plan, Wawa, but they still apply with. Grand plan, right?
It was a preliminary plan.
Right.
But at that point, Greg, you knew what was going on in Mainland Point pretty much. You knew you were gonna do houses, single family houses and apartments and Wawa on the corner, so they knew pretty much what they were gonna do. And in fact, I was gonna mention that Mainland Point is the closest thing we have to
Yeah,
a
so
master
that's right,
plan.
that's right. And then even
But-
subdivided the corner of it, which
Right.
didn't change the master plan.
Mhm.
And they converted a office building into residential
Later,
later,
right, yeah.
just because of demand, which I think is what happened here, right?
Mhm.
Nothing want to stay, well, thank you. Sure. But, so I think that works. Okay, it's the game.
Sorry.
Good night.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Motion to adjourn. Yay. Said, all in favor?
I'm sorry for dragging my on.
That's all right.
Yeah.